Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who've kept us going for over 450 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week is Machuzu. Thank you, Machuzu. Been a dude for years.
Quite some
years.
time.
Ages. Long time. Thank you. We appreciate you. This episode topic is sort of inspired by the Rage Fest that was your top 10 PS1 titles.
Yeah.
I wasn't there for that. And so we ended up accidentally rehashing the whole thing. And mostly, I feel like I disagreed with Steve a lot, but instead we were talking about like it's the 30-year anniversary of the Saturn,
PlayStation.
the PlayStation,
32X as well, technically. Yay.
There's a lot of things that came out in 1994 that are still franchises today.
What a wild year. What a wild, tumultuous year for video games.
I was barely out of my father's balls because I was 6. I was 6 years old. And was my taste in video games good? We're about to find out.
So this was a fantastic year. So we're doing a little evergreen. So spoiler alert for maybe people might be wondering, I'm not here at the time of the release of this episode.
You're off on an adventure.
I'm off on an adventure. So we can't do a reactionary news thing. So if Nintendo announces a Switch 2 while this video just went, apologies. Or whatever. I know they announced their alarm clock, in their beta test for an ND8 game, which absolutely will get leaked, whatever it is. They have to know that.
Yeah.
But
you gonna get that alarm clock?
Hell no.
Come on now.
And hell no.
You want it?
No, I'm not even. I don't even want it. It's $100.
Okay, I'd take that back. I don't got $100 to spend on that. But 1994. The thing is everything in 1994. I don't think I got a PlayStation 1.
Well, I mean, okay, to be fair, like when we say PlayStation Saturn came out in 94, that's in Japan only.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't get a PlayStation until 97, 98. Maybe I was 10 years old already.
Yeah, that's probably closer to the truth, honestly. Probably closer to the truth for a lot of people.
Oh, the thing is like my cousins got a PlayStation before we did. We went NES to Genesis, and then there was like a big gap where we didn't get, because we didn't own a SNES, which is blasphemy. But again, cousins had one, so we played SNES games there. But like I'm trying to think like when we actually got those early systems, because at the time the systems, I guess maybe because of inflation, were way more expensive than they are now. Games, at least in my recollection, they feel like they were way more expensive. So we played things far longer, and over and over and over again. But yeah, so I was fresh out the scrote, and so I didn't play any of these games until, well, no, that's not true. I played Sonic and Knuckles probably right when we got the Genesis. I was going to say I didn't play any of these for at least 5 more years, but there's a decent chance there's a few of these that I played somewhere around. But I want to talk about one game in particular that I had no idea that the franchise started in the 90s, specifically 94, and is still going to this day, is XCOM.
That was XCOM starting in 94, really?
XCOM UFO Defense, 1994.
How interesting.
Strategy video game. By Mythos Games and Microprose.
Yeah. It played on the DOS. MS DOS. Why? Because it's 94.
Unbelievable. Well, also like Doom and Doom 2 came out at this time. And I remember there was a kid in the neighborhood who had that. And again, I don't think it was in 94. I think it was a little bit older than this, but had that and we went and did that. And like Duke Nukem was around the same time that we went and played Duke Nukem, and that had strippers and shit in it.
Yeah.
So that was there's a lot of reasons why I am the way I am. Duke Nukem and Doom, probably a big part of it.
No
Oh,
idea what's going on there.
delve into the trauma. I'm trying to think. Like Tekken got started in '94.
Right. So
Um,
this was actually probably closer to one of the last years where the arcade really was way beyond what you could get on console. And looking at what is 1994, what was going on in the world 30 years ago, and that is we had some of our all-time classic 2D 16-bit games, and then there was a whole nother universe going on in the arcades,
right.
mostly led by Sega, Namco a little bit. Namco and Sega were going at it in the arcade scene, and it's just incredible to think about. Okay, so the year Sonic the Hedgehog 3 on the Genesis comes out, that's the same year Virtua Fighter 2, not 1, 2, Virtua Fighter 2 is hitting arcades.
Yeah.
Like the graphical basically gulf between Sega's home console releases and arcade releases is just massive because even the miracle port that the Saturn VF2 was nowhere up close to as good graphically as the arcade version of VF2. So Sega in the arcades was releasing things that were at least two generations ahead
Arcade
of what was
cabinets
going on.
arcade cabinets were probably very impressive all the way up until the year 2000. Like in terms of what you were playing at home until the year 2000, arcade cabinets were still probably fairly competitive, but they were
Sort
still
of.
impressive.
Soul Calibur was the end of it. Was the beginning of the end.
I'd buy that. What year was Soul Calibur?
99.
99. Yeah.
Because like they had like the 98 arcade version came out and looked like a PlayStation because it ran on PlayStation arcade hardware, and then the Dreamcast version, which was way better looking. So
I'm trying
that's
to think.
jumping ahead to like that's where that's jumping ahead to like where did the arcade die? Like 99. But 94, we're still in this. You go to an arcade and you see something you won't be able to play at home for years.
Yeah.
And if you do play it at home, you're playing a super gimped version of it.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite, because I think if I was going to say when did the arcade die, I don't know that I would say 99. I would say like 2004 is when it was like truly well and dead.
Yeah.
Because I was still going to arcades pretty regularly.
I think I was going around. I remember in 2003. I was still going to like Family Fun regularly.
Yeah, and I was still going to like there was an arcade near us that had like a $10 Tuesday where it was unlimited play for, and I went to that for years. And I think I probably stopped sometime in high school. So I
Mm.
might have even been going to arcades regularly until like 2005, 2006, even almost, maybe. Um what is a weird thing? The thing that stopped us going to that is they released a decent at-home pad for DDR. And so my brother no longer wanted to walk to the arcade, which was like 2 or 3 miles, 2 miles from the house. So he no longer wanted to walk to the arcade to play DDR on the $10 Tuesdays. And so he just like saved up and bought this decent mat that had like a rubberized bottom so it wasn't sliding around. There was a little bit of weight to it. It was still a mat. It wasn't, you know what I'm talking about? Like those like
Yeah,
soft,
sure.
and it sounds like a fart sometimes when you hit it wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like that. But there was a decent one of that, and that is what killed it for us. I used to play a lot of like Time Crisis and shit like that at arcades. And Too Much Puzzle Bobble, which isn't even like these aren't even the things that were like the reason you should be going to an arcade. You could get those games at home at a good quality at that time, definitely. But there was a social aspect.
Well, and honestly, I still feel like there's a market, there's a way, because honestly, I think people craving things to do,
Yeah.
honestly, and you know, I so many more people nowadays, even myself included, are way more they're way more theme park heads now than they were before. Like, why is it always crowded? I'm like, because people want something to do.
Right.
You
We
know,
don't
like,
have it's that whole third spaces debate where we don't have anywhere to just go be. Especially if you're a teenager, but like if you're in that like
mhm,
mid-teen, that you know, uh I don't know, 12 to 15 range, like there's nowhere for you to just be. Like you're
yeah.
still a kid, like you're not hoping to go to movie theaters to make out constantly, like a high schooler might want to be doing. But you want to go to an arcade, but you can't go to Dave and Buster's. You can't go to the barcades. You can't go to like we don't have anywhere for just like people to hang out. Not just kids. Kids, yes,
No,
but
I
also
mean everyone,
yeah.
everyone. There's no,
If you could have like a square, you know, I hate to compare us to Europe constantly, but like you go to Europe and especially a place like Spain, there's just like squares in the center of town, or if you're in a big city, there's like multiple square where it's just like there's a big fountain, there's a bunch of restaurants, bars, and like arcades, things to do, and then above that is like apartments, or like there might be a museum in a corner, like shit like that. It's just a place that people go spend time. You don't have to spend money, but like people just go hang out in the square, and sometimes there's musicians that just play music. There's nothing like that for there's nothing to like just go hang out and to be, you know. And arcades used to be that for us, especially if you were
yeah.
into gaming. But like there's no other than Dave and Buster's, which is more about drinking than playing the games. There's not a lot of big arcades that
Yeah,
I can even
it's just round one and Dave and Buster's now at this point.
yeah.
Well, luckily, round one at least kind of leaned heavily into the Japanese stuff, so they get a lot of rhythm games, they get some fighting games actually, and they get a lot of gotcha cranes. They get a lot of crane games, so it's like
Yeah.
they'll throw a bowling alley in there too. So it's like, okay, well, at least like they're kind of trying to like diversify it a bit.
There's a place out here next to me that blew my mind. It's a movie theater. It's a restaurant with a full bar, a movie theater, a bowling alley, and a big arcade all in one. And it's just like a one-stop shop Friday. Like the way they advertise it is like it's your Friday night. Like you just go to hang out. Um, it is like the only thing in this area that is apparently meant to be a big complex someday soon. So it's just like in the corner of this giant parking lot is a brand new building and nothing around it, like just trees. But like stuff like that is coming back, but there's not, it's not the way it was. Like you used to just go to the mall to hang out because there was an arcade,
Yeah.
nominally a pet store, and like things to do. And there's just not that anymore. Everything's monopolized in a way. And I don't mean, well, I mean, everything is monopoly driven right now. I mean, the government's going ham, taking down monopolies left and right now. But uh, what I mean is like every square inch of retail space or like space is monopolized by selling shit. Like you can't just be, you get run off. Um, so 94 being a good year for arcades, like totally.
Well,
94 being a good
yeah.
year for games in general.
One of the probably longest running arcade games came out in '94, and most people don't. Well, there's a lot. There might be a lot. I don't know how people are gonna guess, because like VF2 kind of came and went in arcades, and there's a couple arcade games that are pretty much eternal, and Pac-Man's one of them. Kind of Space Invaders, maybe is some variation of Street Fighter 2, maybe, but
Okay. Tekken.
and it's not Tekken. There's an arcade game that came out in '94, and you can still find this arcade game anywhere that has any room for arcade games, like any size of
Daytona.
room. Daytona USA. So
Daytona.
this was the year Daytona came out in arcades. I think it's one of the most most profitable arcade. I mean, even though it is a big giant machine, like it's still regularly played to this day. And it did come out on Saturn in Japan, like late in the year. It had a really gimped Saturn version. So again, it was kind of just like it's just a crazy year to think like, Sonic 3 starts the year, and then by the end of the year, they've released what would be one of the longest running arcade games of all time, and then they had it a version in 3D on a brand new console at the end of the year. Like Sega was just like crazy, like what was going on within that company within 1 year.
Did they ever update Daytona? Was there ever a Daytona 2? Because I don't think I've
Oh
ever
yeah, yeah,
seen.
absolutely.
I've only ever
There's
seen
three.
Daytona USA, the original.
Yeah. No, there's a Daytona. Daytona 2 is really cool. It's Model 3, so it's kind of rare. It's hard to like it had Model 3 hardware never really got ported to anything. So they recently put Daytona 2 in I think Yakuza 7 or I don't think it's in 8. It's in one of the Yakuza. It's in one of the more recent Yakuzas.
As a mini
Uh,
game, like, you can just play it?
Full game. It's just a full game in the arcade.
Yes.
Um, So
That's
yeah,
cool
you
as hell.
you can play Daytona 2 is wacky though because of like it's there's like the first big course. The main course is through a theme park, so it's really kind of like wild visually. I mean,
Yeah.
not 94, but again, like one of the greatest Model 3, one of the greatest racing games ever, Scud Racer or Sega Super GT as it was called here. Also Model 3, fantastic.
I
But
keep
yeah, like
expecting you to bring up Need for Speed because it not
I
only.
think that was 93 on the 3DO. Um if you want to, I mean, if you want to talk about Need for Speed, but yeah, no, like Sega was just it's incredible. You could almost talk about how Sega in '94 was just all over the map. So February they released Sonic 3, and it's a rushed release, partially because of McDonald's, which is just a weird thing to think about.
Oh,
Uh,
because of they wanted to have Happy Meal stuff?
yeah, they had a Happy Meal thing, and game wasn't really done, and McDonald's was like, well, tough titties, it's you better be releasing this thing. So they got pressurized by collabs to release Sonic 3 early. So Sonic 3 gets cut in half. They release what they have in February. Sonic and Knuckles comes out in like September. They have
Right.
a big competition, Rock the Rock on Alcatraz for Sonic and Knuckles. My friend Chris Tang won it.
He
Who
won it?
Yeah, and he's a programming prodigy too. So yeah, you can find footage of this still on YouTube. Uh,
Wait, didn't he work at Tilt at one point?
I don't think so.
Why do I recognize the name? I don't know if I knew him or not. It was like Tilter was that PC Arena or something like that. There was a
Wait, oh,
Chris.
he has like the world record in Space Harrier and stuff, and
Hell yeah.
so
I mean,
this rock the rock. Yeah, like that was the big Alcatraz thing Sega hosted in November. They lock on technology, so they have this cartridge that hooks on to Sonic 3 to
yeah.
give you the full game. What really was supposed to just be Sonic 3, before they had to delay it out there. And then of course there was the whole Michael Jackson music that was in the game that Sega tried to bury and deny for years. Um,
Why?
because of it, what do you think?
No, I know. It's
Both legal and moral. Like just
just being a dick. Just-
Well, the funniest thing was that people on Michael Jackson's music team like said it, some years ago to Black and White magazine, and they're like, "Yeah, I remember that happening." That totally, I mean, because Michael Jackson's dead now or whatever, so it's not like you can really ask him personally anymore. But like, his music team was like, "Yeah, I remember that." And like, they specifically remembered, him working on it and then getting frustrated with the Sega sound chip, which still to this day I can't figure out why Sega didn't propose making a Sega CD version of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 that would have exclusive Michael Jackson music. Why they didn't do that, why that never crossed anyone's mind. That is the one piece of this puzzle I still would like to get answered by someone.
well, they didn't want Max specifically to buy a Sega CD
Right.
because he would have.
Probably.
He would have
Uh,
for Michael Jackson.
and the crazy thing too is that, so years ago they confirmed this sometime in like the 2010s, early, late 2000s. And there's still debate. There's still debate. And then Yuji Naka, in his when he was on his rage tirade on Twitter after getting fired from Square Enix, people brought that up to him and said, "Oh, well, did this ever happen?" He's like, "Yeah, here's photos of me at Neverland Ranch, in '93, when we hashed out the deal."
Right on. Did he stay for nap time or?
Which well, which caused a major panic at Sega. Because when they re-released Sonic 3 in the game Sonic Origins, they had to change all the music that was clearly associated with him. And the replacement tracks were not up to snuff. Let me put it that way.
Well, say what you want. The man was a brilliant musician, so it's not like you're just gonna be able to deuce out some cover music. You know what I mean?
Well, they went to like this prototype, and then they sort of touched and cleaned it up, but it just sounded like a Sega Master System game. It's, I mean, they're like, oh, Jun Senu, I can't pronounce his last name. The guy who does a lot of the rock music for Sonic Adventure and beyond. Jun Senoue, he which is Seno, I don't know. He was, he came in and he touched up the prototype music that were used before MJ came on board, and I'm like, barely, like it doesn't sound good, man. Like this guy, June, I don't know, man, kind of lost your touch. A little bit, because most of the stuff I've heard from his later Sonic stuff has just been like eh. And it's such a rich history of music with Sonic. But anyways, crazy Sega year, just crazier. I mean, if you're a Sega fan with money, 94 is great. If you're a Sega fan without money, 94 is frustrating, because the 32X comes out this year, and the Saturn in Japan, and these big fancy arcade games, and all these Sonic games on top of other things, other big game releases for the Genesis and what have you. So if you're rich and Sega fan in 94, a great year, best year. If you're poor, and let's not forget the greatest portable ever came out in 1994, the Sega Nomad, which I own.
And how many games do you own for it?
Owner, a bunch, because I played Genesis games.
Just you at the okay. When did you get the Sega Nomad?
Like 95 or 96. It was a while.
And you got games at the time for it?
I asked for some for Christmas. I had to save my allowance for one whole year to get the Sega Nomad from Toys R Us.
I'm just gonna say your parents loved you.
No,
Because that was not a cheap system.
Well, they didn't buy it. I did.
Yeah, but the games weren't cheap either.
Yeah, they were, because by the time I could afford it, they weren't really costing. They were not costing. Sonic 3 was like $20 when I got Sonic. Like Tiny Toon Adventures was 15 that my grandma got me. They were not expensive. By the time I got Aladdin at Best Buy on like a huge fire sale. Like,
was Aladdin good?
Yeah,
it was actually good. Why is Aladdin?
Fantastic.
Aladdin sticks in my mind as one of the like rough games based on a Disney movie.
No, Aladdin's great. Aladdin has some weird hit detection issues because of all the crazy animation in it, but you
loved it. 96 or 94 was a great year for you.
So yeah, a lot of great stuff for Sega people in 94 if you had the money to buy it in 94. But this was also kind of the problem with Sega in 94, because they had CES, which is in spring in Las Vegas, and actually, no, I think that was actually the previous year, which is 32X came out in 94. Why did the 32X even come out? Because someone in Sega Japan got scared by the booth for the Atari Jaguar.
Hell yeah.
So they demanded we need to have a counter to the Jaguar, by the holiday season.
Well, I got to tell you, not a lot of good things came out of Atari during this period of time, but the Atari Jaguar scaring Sega into releasing its new system. Yeah,
making a system, just making a completely useless peripheral. Yeah, it's just
that's amazing. Go ahead.
I was just kind of thinking, and like the Jaguar itself didn't come out in Japan until December of 94, when the PlayStation and Saturn were also out.
Oh boy.
So Jaguar was toast on toast by the time it hit Japan.
I for anybody who is like, oh, 1994 wasn't that good because you're not looking at the list of games. There's so much of like gamer culture is grounded in like Elder Scrolls Arena is here, Sonic and Hedgehog 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Earthworm Jim is the first Earthworm Jim is here. Need for Speed started in 1994. Streets of Rage 3, but Streets of Rage 3 was on Genesis, which was one of the ones that I owned. Very happy about that. Star Wars TIE Fighter, which I never played, but I knew several people who were obsessed.
Yeah, very
Like
good game.
all about that. Castlevania Bloodlines, Daytona, Super Punch Out came out in 1994, Super Bomberman 2. I'm trying to FIFA, always a FIFA, Mega Man 5. There's just like there's so many franchises that have, I mean, Final
Yeah,
Fantasy 6 came out in 94, which six for us was 3
yeah,
in Japan. So 6 is the one that has the villain winning.
right.
I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but
Kefka.
Kefka, thank you. Yeah, he's one of the best video game villains, mostly just because he won. He's mostly just edgy. But the point is like 94 was a year. Um, Granted, I was barely out of diapers. I was
This is
I
also a
was
year.
laughing at my farts in a bathtub.
It was also a year where people were getting away with shit like lies, like BS and lies were still like the to do thing because 92 you had blast processing, but 94 is rolls around and everyone's like kind of like hopped up on the advent of CD technology and because you had 3DO, Sega CD, Turbo CD, CDI, Jaguar was going to have a CD add-on, PlayStation and Saturn, of course, are both CD-based systems. And
Mhm.
Nintendo actually fights back against this because they're like, no, no, it's the year of the cartridge in 1994. And they convince people that they can do 32-bit on the Super NES. And they do this with Donkey Kong Country. So Donkey Kong Country gets founded. Like this is where like Rare becomes like a household name in 94. Because Nintendo agrees to get them a bunch of SGI workstations, which they then use to convert CG character renders down into sprites for Killer Instinct and for Donkey Kong Country.
Hell yeah.
So Nintendo goes into the big holiday season with like the big resurgence of DK, and it worked. It absolutely worked for me. It worked for everyone because, like, the beast is back, and he got graphics you can't see. Like, you think you need a CD based game? Like that was in their commercials. Like, think you only get this on CD? Think again. Donkey Kong Country. So Nintendo was kind of like this. It was kind of like they're a good guy Nintendo, right? Where they're like Sega makes you buy $150, $300 add-on, for their system, and Sony says you got to buy a new $300, a new $400, CD system. You don't need to buy a new system. You don't need a peripheral. All you need to do is just buy this game. And
Not very rad of you, dude.
honestly, and it kind of works as like, oh, the SNES is still going because it came out 90 in Japan and it came out 91 in North America. So, I mean, everyone's brain, because again, you have to remember, we've lived in a 3-tier console race for the last 20 years in video gaming. Last 24, 25 really. But last 20 years, it's been there's 3 consoles. There's Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, right?
Mhm.
You got to understand there were like 7 in 1994. There was Nintendo, there was Sega, which had like 3 things on the market. Again, 3, 4 if you count the Game Gear. Um, Nintendo, Sega, Sony jumped in. 3DO, which was, you thought was Panasonic 3DO, but that was just the most common version. 3DO was actually open source, like people could license out. So there was Magnavox 3DO, there was Panasonic 3DO, there were other 3DO, the Gold Star 3DO. So there was 3DO, There was Philips CDI. There was Neo Geo CD that came out in 1994.
Which one was Shining Force on?
Genesis.
That was on I thought that was on Sega CD or CD.
There is a Sega CD Shining Force. I have a copy.
Oh yeah. For some reason,
And then
that's
of
the only
course,
cartridge or the only box.
and last but not least, Philips exists. Last but least was Atari. And you had Atari with the Jaguar, and they finally discontinued the Lynx. And that's just 7 companies. And then if you add up each how many consoles are on each, it doesn't quite double, but like you're over 10 because you have Game Boy, Super Nintendo, Nintendo. The last Nintendo game comes out in 1994. Wario's Woods. Anyone cares? Nobody. But Kirby's Adventure came out in 93. They were keeping that system going for a while. But 3 from Nintendo, like 4 from Sega, 1 from Sony, Philips, Microsoft, Lynx and CDI. CDI had game. People don't know this. The Philips CDI's last game came out in 1999.
Jesus.
Yeah. So I mean, again, we had seven brands on the market and like over 10 systems competing at once, plus PC. As you pointed out, you had those big releases like Doom 2 and XCOM, on top of PC. So again, 94 is a bloodbath of just retail war. Everyone vying for shelf space in 94.
I was trying to I was looking up different Genesis games that I owned, and I forgot about Shadowrun came out in 1994. I did not buy it in 1994, but we got it 2 years later. So 96, yeah, I got it there was one Christmas where my dad had surprised us with a bunch of Genesis stuff, like
Mm,
extra controller, in this this big case that you could pack everything away. It was supposed to be like a travel case or like a storage case for the
mm,
Genesis. So it was this huge plastic case. It could hold 50 games. It was it was 50 games, and then the console and extra controllers and stuff, and then you just it's this big heavy case that you could just take. We never used it for anything, but all the games sat in it. Because how are you going to lug that to people's
yeah, right.
houses? It's huge. It had 2 big thick handles. Um, but yeah, Shadowrun we got, which I don't think that was the first Shadowrun game. I'm not.
Mm,
I don't think it was the first Shadowrun game. I think it was, but it was in the Shadowrun series. Um, there was that Star Wars game. There was ones on SNES, but I was going down a list of them to see. There really was just kind of an amazing year, and I'm wondering if it's the competition. Like you said, there's 7 consoles or
no,
7
there's
pieces of 7.
7 brands with
Yes.
like 10 plus consoles.
Would we benefit from that today, though?
Oh hell no.
It would just choke off. You'd never be able to own everything.
Well, and that's the kind of the other thing too is that this is why game systems became rare and why like 94 was almost like a showing you like was creating its own retro game market years later because you had so many consoles and most of them failed or flopped. So now people pay top dollar to find a Philips CDI game, a 3DO game in good condition, a Jaguar game in good condition. It's still not easy to this day to find Jaguar software, even though it was a huge mega flop and nobody really cared about it, kind of thing. It's just
I'm going to say something deeply controversial. It's not worth going back and playing those games. Games have gotten way better.
see,
Sorry.
okay, and that's kind of like the weird thing too, is that like Tekken 1 is kind of balls. Like
Yes.
Like Tekken 1 is not good to play. Like Virtua Fighter 2 is a significantly better playing game than Tekken 1. And Harada knows this. and
Harada
and
feels this.
Harada feels and I'm with Harada on the whole, hey, we gotta get VF back in the game. We need to get the competition. We can't be standing alone on the hill. So but yeah, that's about that and then to say nothing of nearly the entire library for the Atari Jaguar being absolute garbage.
Can you think of a single good Jaguar game? I
Yes.
can't even think of a single Jaguar game that I played.
Okay, Doom is excellent on the Jaguar.
Better than the
Um,
PC version of Doom, though?
yeah, well, it depends on what you're running on. Are you talking about like a PC from '94 or a PC now?
Well, PC from 96 is probably what I played it on.
Well, PCs are always getting better. It's just the fact that Doom was a very fast, smooth running version of Doom on the Jaguar when it came out.
That's pretty
Wolf,
cool.
Wolfenstein 3D, very good on the Jaguar.
Okay.
Alien versus Predator is pretty good. It's a little slow, but it's very good. Um,
Not good enough to save the Jaguar
oh God,
or
no!
Atari
Oh hell
in
no!
general.
Hell no! That's the thing. It's Doom and Wolfenstein. They're on everything. You
Yeah.
know, having a good playing version of Doom is not a novelty. So wasn't even really back then.
What
So
was your favorite point and click adventure game from that time?
none. I didn't play any at that
You
time.
didn't play any of it. Wasn't Monkey Island around then?
Sure, but I never. I played none of the LucasArts games. I didn't even really know they existed. I did not play PC back then. Like,
Fair. My dad had a PC for his like small business and ran like DOS and shit. And I like the thing is like when you have those vague memories of like you and your brother getting into trouble, and it's just we had like saved up money and bought video games at Staples. Was the
mm,
only place we could find to buy video games at the time nearby. And we bought a PC game at Staples. And it was a point and click adventure. It was like a detective
mm,
thing. Where I could probably find it. I think it was from the early 90s. I don't know, but it was like a detective and installed it and then gotten like just a whole bunch of one because it was like a noir game, so there's a lot of cussing and stuff. And the fact that a 6-year old and an 8-year old or an 8-year old and a 10-year-old or whatever we were at the time, like walked up with the box and the guy at Staples was like, all right. Different times, better times, some would say. Um, but yeah, like that's the extent of my PC gaming in the 90s was my dad's jank old computer for running a subway inventory system.
nice. I
All
would
the
be remiss
meats.
to say also the best Jaguar game came out in '94. Tempest 2000.
See, nobody remembers the Jaguar. By
No,
nobody, I
no, they
mean
don't.
me. I don't
But it
know
is, but it is great.
what was great about it.
Tempest 2000.
Yeah.
Music, music and gameplay. Like it's just like a sort of it's a very acid trippy sort of take on well Tempest, but but Tempest 2000 absolute peak rave dance music and just classic because Tempest is when I say I can't say shmup or space shooter because it's Tempest. You're on these different shapes that usually make some sort of circle and you go around the circle
Hmm.
shooting things kind of thing. I don't know. It's for
Yeah.
Jaguar, it's the bee's knees if you have a Jaguar. It's still a great game regardless, but
I think something that I was thinking about is like a lot of these early games, say, 95 and earlier, that we have like strong nostalgia for. Like when you think of how prolific, not really 8-bit, but like 16-bit art, like bit art, pixel
mhm.
art and stuff. And like, oh, everybody loves the pixel art. We have nostalgia for pixel art. I actually don't think it's the art we're nostalgic for. We think it is because we're visual animals, but I bet you it's more the music we're actually nostalgic for. And it made us remember the art fondly. Because if you look at a lot of that artwork now, it's some of it is still pretty cool, but a lot of it just looks like butt. Like a lot of it just looks like in your memory, you're like, "Oh, this looks sick as hell," but then you go back and look at it now, and like a lot of it is butt. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like it's just muddy butt, But the music, while to audiophile standards would have been muddy butt, also they were so creative of how they got the music to work that I think it's just like a lot of that music just kills. still to this day kills. I mean, probably because they were following solid principles to where the sound itself isn't what embedded with you. It's the beat and the rhythm that kind of tricked
Yeah.
you into loving it. Like maybe if you went back and listened to the original music now, you'd be like, this sounds like ass. But nostalgically, I remember it as being very good. I made this argument in a video essay. I never finished or released, but where I was talking about like, oh, is 8-bit actually iconic, or is it the music we remember and we forget that 8-bit looked like muddy butt a lot of the time?
Mm.
But I look back at like 94, probably all the way up to like 98, and I wonder like 94, obviously, look at how many franchises started here. Iconic year. Does it compare to modern gaming? Does it compare to, like an iconic year of the last 10 years?
Well, kind of, yeah. Because I think 94. Here's an interesting thing. I think 94 did for gaming that it didn't trailblaze, but it did something where put it in people's minds. And 94 was a big year for gaming music. Um, because a lot of people
Okay.
kind of had people like that I'm not saying that high quality music or whatever didn't exist before 94 in gaming. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it was a big year to sort of like make people stand up and take notice. Um, Now, if you're in the PC gaming sector, you probably think, what are you talking about? Console gaming, and PC gaming were very different worlds at this time. And
Yeah.
even with stuff like Sega CD and Turbo CD and CDI and on 3D or whatever, like people still weren't. It would just be like, oh, okay, you just took some music from somewhere else and just slapped it over the game, like the game. But I would have to say, because of the composers at Rare in 94 specifically, there was a lot more notice of game music. Like people were real, oh shit, this is like something more. And it was so good. It was like some of the first CDs for a video game soundtrack ever released in North America were for Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong Country. Those two games specifically. Um,
Well, that was
because
what Rare was known for, was its music
yeah,
and
yeah, because
funk humor or whatever.
the Stamper brothers they believed in the validity of and the importance of music and soundtrack in video games. So they actually had in-house composers. They hired in-house composers. They didn't just contract it out to someone. So Killer Instinct is Robin Beanland and Graham Norgate. They make a soundtrack that is wildly good, like way it hits so far above its pay grade for what it is. Because if you think about KI's got all kinds of like dance and rave and rock, and like and sort of like orchestra as well with Saberwolf's theme and stuff like that. And they're just everything is this maximalist music. Like it's just so much because if you're playing Bjorkid, you get like this crazy dance music. If you're playing Cinder, you get like the hardest rock music. Playing
Right.
Saberwolf, you get like orchestra, for their levels and stuff. And then you just get like crazy experimental stuff with other characters like Riptor and Spinal. So insane soundtrack. And then you have and that's an arcade, right? And they're using a hard drive in the arcade and they're blasting it out. And it's like people are like, holy crap, what is going on? Hey, hell, and I don't want to like downplay Daytona because everyone remembers, you know, uh
Daytona.
Takanobu going, Daytona, it's still in everyone's mind. Especially because of Gay Boner and Epona and whatever. But anyways,
Hell yeah.
Donkey Kong Country on the SNES, people stand up and take notice in ways they honestly didn't with Mario and Metroid. And I'm not saying they're bad soundtracks, but
But they are more simplistic than
I mean, they're going for different things, right? But it's like people didn't think the Super NES could do what David Wise did with the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack.
right.
So Donkey Kong Country, David Wise, Eveline Fisher, and one of the tracks from Robin Beanland that wasn't in KI, but what got used to Donkey Kong Funky's theme. You have this soundtrack on a Super NES that suddenly sounds like this is something I would listen to outside of the game. This is something you could play to someone who doesn't play video games, and they would go, "That sounds incredible." Which I think you still could. You could do that for Mario or whatever, but like there was something sort of ethereal. People didn't know you could hit kind of emotional beats like the way Donkey Kong did. Like, and a lot of it was just a very sort of, and again, this is also of the time a little bit where remember how New Age was a big thing in the
Yeah.
90s?
Oh yeah.
And Donkey Kong Country has a very sort of moody, pure moods, New Age vibe. It's got jazz and then it's got like sort of like New Age vibe. Um, and it's just like you didn't expect to hear that coming out of a game about a 800-pound gorilla stomping on crocodiles.
Well, I
But
mean,
here we are.
that is like think about the music in even Conker's Bad Fur Day, which is to the extreme of their humor. The
Yeah,
music in Conkers is still pretty good.
yeah,
Like it's still pretty damn good. I can't think. I mean, up until they got bought by Microsoft, but even then, like Sea of Thieves has great music, and that's a pretty recent.
right.
You know, Rare still.
This is all Robin Beanland tracks you're talking about here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said when I met the man, he is my favorite at Rare. Now, granted, God, I'm blanking on his name too because we met him too, and I really like him personally, but I don't. I think Beanland is the only composer that I recognize his music because I love Conkers so much. But um, I don't know why I'm blanking on the other guy that we met at that E3. He's
Was it
just as
Grant?
yes, Grant
Yeah.
Kirkhope. Thank you. Also prolific. He did
Right. Yeah.
he did the music for Rabbids, right? Mario and Rabbids and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, which I recognized like his touch on Mario and Rabbids when I think JJ gave me that. And I
Mhm.
was playing, I was like, this sounds so familiar. And she was like, oh, it's a Rare composer. She's tired of hearing us sing their praises, I guess. I'm trying to think, other than Rare, there's a few like Japanese composers that really stand out. Like other than those
Yeah,
Rare,
because you like you said, Final Fantasy VI came out, also a Super NES game,
right?
and Nobuo Uematsu, the opera scene in Final Fantasy VI. I mean, I don't want to not mention it, but I also have to, I'm also going to be honest with you. Not very many people were playing Final Fantasy VI in North America when it came out. Like
Right.
Japan's obviously a different story, but out here, it's kind of a tough sell. Like it is very niche.
Well, but also Japanese composers in games, I would say all the way up until probably 2000, they were for the most part outside of maybe Rare leagues ahead. I mean,
Yeah,
think
that's the thing, and I think mental. I think it's just a mental thing, really. Honestly, I think it's still kind of a mental thing because this would continue. I think all the way into the PlayStation because you had Devo and the Police, people from those bands, Mark Mothersbaugh, and forget the guy from the Police who did all the Spyro soundtracks or whatever.
fucking Sting.
No, it wasn't Sting.
But it would be great if you found out that Sting, in between being in David Lynch movies, he was just like, I'm going to make incredible music for video games.
No. Stuart was. I want to say Stuart Copeland. Sorry,
Oh, yeah. Stuart Copeland. Yeah.
from the Police. So he did all the. Here's the thing, but I'm going to call both of them out. I don't care. They're rich as fuck. Both Mark Mothersbaugh and Stuart Copeland for Crash and Spyro, respectively. They may have been big time musicians in big time bands. They approached video games as video game music. But cutesy theme,
You think so, or you think that's just what they
I
wanted to
honestly
do?
do. I honestly do. And unless we want to go down the rabbit hole of they were never good composers. Period. But I don't. It's not like their work on Crash and Spyro is bad, but it feels like they're like, oh yeah, it's a video game. Make it bibbity boobity bobbity, right? And
But what if
and
that was what they were asked for?
it could be because and then that's also possible, but like I remember going to a Comic-Con panel with Stuart Copeland there and talking about Spyro. Oh yeah, well, I'm into music for this, this game with this little dragon and run around on the PlayStation. Okay, whatever. Um, and it's just kind of like the vibe is like they're not. It's not like they don't like they're not dismissive of the work, but they're also like, yeah, I saw it and it was like this colorful character jumping around and wanted to really bring that. I'm like, okay, you bibbity bobbity did bibbity 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 boop.
You
Because
wanted them to see Spyro and go like, "I'm gonna bring death and destruction and
I wanted them to
sadness."
see Spyro and just be like John Williams, because that's what and I think to me this is like where someone like Grant Kirkhope, when he approaches Banjo Kazooie with this game about a bear and a bird and all those other all these dumb characters or whatever, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, like what would John Williams do? That's just kind of his mentality of doing it, not which is not to like it can be simple, it can be you don't have to worry about too much stuff. And I think a lot of Japanese composers and rare composers at the time were just like, we're not thinking about that it's a video game. I'm looking at the environment, I'm looking at the art, and I'm just kind of like trying to, and I'm just gonna like vibe it out. Like it felt like they were going
Right.
off of vibes and emotion and feeling when they were composing games at that, even in 1994 versus other people who are like, all right, here's Wild Woody for the Sega CD, and as we have affectionately named it, it's basically penis music. Um,
Well, it is Wild Woody.
which sounds like someone just took their dick to a synthesizer and just slapped it all over.
I think a perfect example of games that were heavily elevated by their music are the Metal Gear games. I mean, if you think about like
Right, which I mean, granted, there's controversy behind that a bit. Because the original composer for Solid was like told, go make something sound, like Russian and like a Russian anthem, not the Russian anthem, but very like make it look sound a traditional Russian. And he goes and literally pulls an actual Russian folk song. So the Metal Gear theme didn't get used for a while.
the wait for Metal Gear Solid though.
Yeah.
What theme is Russian folk song?
Oh, you don't know this? Someone even pointed this out to Kojima during like Metal Gear 5, and he was like, 4 or 5, and you can see Kojima being like, "Oh shit!"
Well, it's
Like
not
there's
the
just like
theme, it's
this.
in Gaelic.
There was like
Yeah.
this. No, no, not the best is yet to come. Like
Yeah.
the theme of
Oh,
Metal Gear Solid is a Russian theme, is a Russian folk song. And someone played it to Kojima, and you could see his face in this like little like interview room at E3, and you just be like, "God damn it!"
hey,
You could just see the "God damn it" writing on his face as he's hearing it.
what are you gonna do? Cold War had ended. It was the Wild West for stealing shit from Russia.
Right?
I didn't realize that the actual Metal Gear Solid theme.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Tappy was the guy with the name of the respectively the name who basically just stole it from Russia.
What an
It's
asshole.
it's a song called "The Winter Road" by Russian composer Gregory Sviridov, which is why the motif disappeared for so long.
That's that's pretty funny. But my point is like Metal Gear games. You could argue that part of the reason that they had a lasting impact was the music was so good.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Um, I'm trying to think of like if you had to pick the most consequential game in '94, like for what ends up coming today.
Hmm.
So many franchises were started or like continued or even had some of their most popular input here. But it's like, what in '94 reaches to today? Because we have a lot of listeners that are in their like
Honestly,
20s.
you want to know what the real answer to this actually might be? It's
Mm,
Super Metroid.
okay.
Granted, it's part 3 in the Metroid series, but Super Metroid releasing in '94 probably had the longest lasting impact on me, because most indies to this day still just make Super Metroid games.
That that is fair. Yeah, actually,
Because
okay.
I can't say Doom because we're talking about Doom 2, we're talking about Virtua Fighter 2, and these are sequels to the games from '93, which you could argue
Right.
kickstarted 3D gaming or whatever. Um, and Donkey Kong was again Donkey Kong and KI were not new games in their genre, but they did actually make people take up and take notice of soundtracks a lot more. But Super Metroid got to probably have the longest reaching impact on
Not
anything.
Warcraft.
No, because RTSs are dead.
Yeah, but Warcraft, the first Warcraft coming out directly leads to World of Warcraft.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, from the IP standpoint, but it's now it's more of it's way more sad. I think to think about, uh, Warcraft and because it's like, oh, RTS games. Oh yeah, RTS games. Remember that? Yeah,
I mean, they're technically still around. They're just like they're not as big anymore
yeah.
because you can now jump in and be in the battle itself, which is arguably more exciting. Unless you're Zuckerberg, who really, really,
Well,
really loves Civilization.
and then there was like the crazy. There was a crazy. Yeah, I can't believe it came out on DOS originally. Good lord. It came out in the book, the Jason Schreier book, right? Plain Ice, where he was talking about how there was a guy, one of the old hats at Blizzard for years had been trying to get Blizzard to commit to StarCraft 3 or start a new or a new Warcraft even. And they continuously denied him because they said they had no appetite for it. He's like the market has no appetite for RTS
Hmm.
whatsoever. So, and then Warcraft 3 was this huge bomb. Warcraft 3 remastered, sorry, not the original, remastered. The remaster Warcraft 3, which is a huge another big Blizzard debacle.
Yeah.
If you want to go look that up. And that basically was kind of like the nail in the coffin where for the rest of them they were kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, look at this. Warcraft 3 remastered did nothing. Let's ignore the fact that the game was we completely lied about what the game was going to have in it and
Right.
all that other stuff. But there's no taste for RTS now. I mean, I think South Korea not being hyper addicted to RTSs might be probably was the thing that killed RTSs altogether.
Well, they stayed pretty addicted to RTSs well into the 2000s. Like, so when did StarCraft
Hmm.
2 come out?
That came out like what, like mid to late 2000s, something like that.
And that murdered it in South Korea, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it did well, but I mean, it wasn't enough
Right.
in to really, I guess you could say, just
Revive the genre.
yeah, it just I guess you could just say it just wasn't really enough to yeah, make it
Okay.
a big thing. Because I'm trying to think what were the sales even of it.
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head. I do remember we have a friend, Justin, that's like real into StarCraft. And he told me at one point that it was just murdering it in Asia, which I
Yeah,
now assume he meant Korea, but at the
yeah.
time he said Asia. But uh all right, last thing.
Oh God, it didn't. Yeah, I can tell you why StarCraft's dead.
Oh, it didn't do well.
Not no, I did fine, but not to the kind of money Blizzard been pulling in since then is like you can. So StarCraft 2, from what we have, I can tell. Um, by 2012, by the end of 2012, it sold 6 million copies. StarCraft 1 and 2 combined have sold 17.6 million, which is pretty good, but you also think that's both games combined. So you're looking at, like just split the difference. So like they're looking at like somewhere between 8. It's probably a little bit more like 10-7 in StarCraft 1's favor. Um,
StarCraft
you know,
1 was around for longer though. A
yeah,
lot.
you're thinking about like 6 to 7 million copies of a game. And here's the real answer. Here's the real answer. You would think 6 7, that's great, that's amazing. It's pretty good. It is pretty good. But here's the other thing. They're making no money. They only make money off expansions and DLC, which diminishes returns. They can't make Overwatch money that they can make every day in Overwatch. They can make every
Right.
month in World of Warcraft. So of course there's no appetite for RTS because
Yeah.
it's just pure greed at this point. We can't be satisfied with a game selling well on its own and just leaving it at that.
Well, I'm not gonna give them hate on that because obviously they were right, right? Made just a buttload of money. Although now that a lot of people would say that Blizzard's creatively bankrupt, that
Oh, it
they're
is.
hollowed out. They don't have
Oh,
any.
oh, faux show. Wow, I can't believe Need for Speed didn't come out till December of '94.
Yeah,
Wow. Good lord.
I'm surprised with how many like gamer culture touch points or anchor points are anchored in 1994. The
Yeah, because
Daytona thing, the Need for Speed,
yeah, because
Street
like
Fighter 2
because
Turbo, Punch Out, or
well, yeah,
Super Punch Out.
ST, Super Turbo, Super Metroid, Donkey Kong Country, Final Fantasy 6, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Um,
The Lion King.
Shut up. Oh god, that game. Tekken. Remember,
Or
like let's not forget Tekken started.
yeah,
Marathon from Bungie. They're trying to bring that
Marathon was
back.
in '94?
Yes, late 94.
Well, the weird thing is they're trying to bring it back, but it's not gonna be really Marathon because Marathon was basically just Halo.
Right.
Like, so whatever they're calling Marathon now isn't gonna be what that original Marathon was.
Yeah,
'Cause
because no,
that
because the new one's supposed to be like an extraction shooter or something.
Yeah, in the original Marathon, you're fighting basically what eventually becomes the Flood in Halo universe.
Right. Wasn't there always sort of like a we're not saying it, but we're saying it like this
Connection between the 2, yeah.
connection? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know, it's never been confirmed, but it's so closely Halo is born from Marathon. So whatever this Marathon that's coming out now, I don't think it's gonna be anything like the Marathon from the '90s, which wasn't that a Mac exclusive?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
it was. It
yeah,
was
it
a
was.
Macintosh. Oh, but here, oh my God. It came out on the Apple Pippin
The
in 1996.
What is a Pippin?
You don't know what the Apple Pippin is?
No, I only played the Apple Mariodoc.
No, okay, so Apple Pippin is a it's not even really technically it's not even technically an Apple system, but yeah, Apple made a home console called the Pippin.
Oh my god. Yes, I'm looking at the pictures of it now. It has a mouse ball?
Yeah.
My god. And like an 8 direction D-pad.
I saw the Japanese one because Bandai released it in Japan. I saw it at the Game A bar in Japan when I was in Tokyo last time. And yeah, the guy let me take it out of the box and look at it and everything. And yeah, I was yeah, I've held an Apple Pippin. I've not really played it, but yeah,
The controller doesn't look very comfy.
no. I mean controllers had a rough time in the mid 90s.
The
Like
Batwing. Well, I mean, they're all sort of amalgamating into the same thing now because they've figured out ergonomics matters.
yeah, you think they would have learned like figured that out quick, but whatever.
Best controllers of the '90s go.
Of the 90s? Sega
Yeah,
Saturn. Get out of here.
Saturn. Your 6-button Saturn.
Done. Two shoulder buttons, six button. Sega Saturn. If you're playing 2D games, the Saturn's the best controller ever made. Um,
Fair enough.
I don't even like the DualShock, but the DualShock does work um, for 3D. Like as far as 3D goes, like the DualShock is probably the only controller from the 90s specifically.
Well, it's the only one that was built from the ground up for 3D, wasn't it?
No, the N64 controller, but like
Oh, I guess yeah, that's true.
you know,
Yeah, well, yeah, from the '90s. '90s is a big time, but all right. Final thought on '94. Well,
it was a bloodbath of a video game year. The Super Game Boy also came out. Lots of other crazy stuff happened. It was pretty much impossible to keep up with everything that released in '94. And even then, and even if you could, even if you did keep up with everything that was happening, on a month to month, day to day basis in '94, you need to be super rich to even experience it.
So if you're
Um,
20, if you're 24 today and you want to go back and emulate some of the classic games that inspire the people making games today, 94 is a good year to start.
94 is definitely because it's right on the cusp of the transition to 3D.
Yeah.
People were trying to go into 3D as early as 93. But I mean, again, like Sega was the only one who was the only 3D games from 94 truly and that hold up today are the Sega games like Virtua Fighter 2, Daytona USA, Tekken 1. Again, Tekken 1's balls. Um, and then a lot of the early 3D stuff you would find on other stuff like
Mm.
it might be okay, but like it's usually framey or clunky or whatever. Like there's very few games in 3D from that era because again everyone was running towards 3D and CD based technologies, but it would be about another year before CD would really take root, take hold in North America, and 3D would become more commonplace. And then even then it would take until 96 truly till Mario 64 when people really figured out, okay, how do we move in 3D and not feel like a piece of crap. And that would take till 96 really for Mario 64 to really kind of like figure it out for most people.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was one of the best things about Mario 64 is like moving Mario was just fun.
I think if anything from the bloodbath of 94, it was actually a solid win for Nintendo because Nintendo actually proved that sticking to your guns and just making games look really good on the hardware people already owned for like Game Boy and Super Nintendo was kind of the better option for everyone in the end. You know,
30 years later, and that's still the strategy for them.
it is still kind of the strategy. Let's just stick with what works. Let's not like try to make a million different things. Let's not try to have a VR headset or a weird controller that needs a Wi-Fi connection to play your games and connect to your console, or a pro version of your console that adds some pisser technology.
Well,
Wait a minute, who are we talking about? Oh, right. So
they would love to be able to get away with releasing a pro version. They released like 6 versions of the Switch. All the others, the Switch Lite,
I mean, even I was kind of like, okay, so what is the point of the Switch Lite? You took away everything that made the Switch the Switch, but it didn't really replace the Switch. Again, the hardware was all the same in there. It was all just like, hey, you want a portable only version? If you're a weirdo, go for it.
if you're a weirdo. On that note, weirdos, we are we're gonna thank some patrons. Again, Matt is out of town, so if we didn't talk about some of the biggest news, I'm sorry, but you can also hop into the Patreon community and we can chat on it there. So, Patreon plug. But our producers for this episode are Dragon Wolf Makoto, Austenite, Zybernite, Tsunami, Croy35, Hyper Viper 89, Hockey Kong 64, LCL Mayhem, and Ziggy Z. Thank you, dudes, and we will catch you next time.
Later, dudes.